So I wanted to record this so we can make sure we share this conversation with Danielle. And Danielle, thank you so much for being with us this morning and talking to us about period equity and all kinds of exciting things. I want to say this, when I was walking the PEI Camino last week, Marilyn Cater and I were talking a lot about this topic, and the way that I learned about it was through my daughter, who has her own podcast, and she invited me to watch a film called Period End of Sentence, which if you haven't seen, it's on Netflix. It's about a 20-minute documentary about young women in India and the stigma around periods and how it limits their education and career opportunities. And my daughter Alex also has done some interviews with women that are creating and I think empowering young women with new products for menstruation, which is something I had never even thought of in my whole life. So Marilyn and I were walking, and I was saying, oh, I'd really like to, when I do this Camino walk, I'd really like to support cause. Was Melissa here? Melissa's our other web mistress. And I'd really like to do something important with this walk, not just do the walk. And I feel the walk's going to be very meaningful. And I was invited by Wild Women Expeditions, which is one of our women's tour companies, to do this. And it's just amazing how things happen when you're not expecting it. And suddenly, a week or so ago, I was invited to come on this trip. So anyway, so I wanted to do something, and talking with Marilyn, talking with my daughter, this was an issue that I thought deserved a little more attention. And so when I reached out to Jana and Danielle at the Period Person, and I'm learning too, so I asked if Danielle would come on this call this morning and talk to us a little bit about some of the terminology around this, about what's happening in the world. And I think some of you even have stories you might want to share about what you've witnessed on your travels, just to kind of bring it home for us. So Danielle, welcome. Could you share a little bit about you and the Period Person, how this all got started?
Absolutely. So thanks again. My name is Danielle Kaftarian. I'm the operations manager here at the Period Purse. I've been with the Period Purse from day one, as the founder was a dear friend of mine prior to the Period Purse starting. So a little bit about us. We are the first and currently the only charity in Canada that focuses on menstrual equity and distributing free products out to the communities and educate. So we do focus on 3 different pillars, which I'll go into in a little bit. How we started was very grassroots. So our founder had a job that required her to drive around the city of Toronto. That's where we're located. And when she was driving, she saw somebody panhandling. And she just had a moment where she was like, I wonder what they do for their period and how they're managing their period. So she went home and she went into purge mode, and she was pulling out stuff out of her cupboard with sort of what she didn't need anymore. You might buy a set of pads or tampons and you decide you don't like them or you don't want them anymore. And she was trying to figure out how to pack them up. She posted on our local Facebook group and said, hey, does somebody have a purse that I could pack this up in? Because her idea was to just pack it up with some toiletries, and then when she saw someone panhandling, she could hand it out her window. This caught on in our community, and within a few days, she had collected 11 purses, and we were celebrating that. And it got picked up by CBC News. And next thing you know, we were collecting a big blitz because we realized we were on to something, and we collected and did big packing parties and celebrated that we had 300, I think it was about, that we had packed up. That was back in 2017. Since then, we have sent out over 100,000 healthy periods out to the community. And This year was our largest year ever, where the year isn't over yet. We run for calendar year for our numbers, and we're at 52,000. So we've sent out more this year than we have any other year that we've operated. So I'll dive in and talk a little bit about what that is, if you like. And so really what the mission and vision is at the Period Purse is to strive for menstrual equity. So we want to ensure that we're providing marginalized menstruators with access to free products, as well as reducing the stigma around talking about periods through public education and advocacy. So if you asked me in 2016 if I would be on a call with a group of people talking about menstruation and periods, I would say absolutely not. So times have changed with that. Is there, do you want me to just kind of dive into some other things, or did you want to ask me a few more questions, Carolyn?
Yeah, I mean, could you explain some of the terminology around there's period equity, there's menstrual equity, there's period poverty is another term. What do those all mean?
So many terms. Thank you for asking. So it all really comes down to the same sort of thing, which is our mission. So we want to ensure that people have access to the product that they want and the product that they need when they need it. It's really kind of that there's all sorts of sort of red tape where there's people don't have access to these products, and they're, you know, that can affect menstrual health. So for example, we're hearing stories and reports, and it's truly heartbreaking, that people are using items when they don't have the correct period products, of socks rolled up, newspapers. People are making like tampons and pads out of them. Most people know the toilet paper trick if you forgot one, or if you didn't have one. I think everyone's probably been there at least once. And they're doing this regularly, which is causing infections that they can't seek out medical help for. It's causing people to miss school and miss work. So this all sort of rolls into one compass of inequity, that people don't have access to it, and menstrual health. It's affecting their health for menstruation. And we just want to raise that awareness.
And we would think here in Canada, oh, who can't have access to period products? What's your take on that?
It is pretty crazy. So I think we often, like with the documentary, it allows us to think about what's happening in our and for especially this group in your travels when you go to different countries, and you know, how they manage their cycle might be different than what we experience here. I know I think everyone here is North America right now, so that would be quite different. But I'm going to give you some stats here in Canada, where we don't necessarily think of this as an issue. So you can only imagine that this is going to increase depending on where you travel in the world. So recent stats are showing us that 1/3 of Canadian women under the age of 25 experience period poverty, so unable to purchase or have purchase menstrual products, or have to make those difficult decisions of, you know, do I buy a box of tampons, or do I buy a box of KD to feed my kids, right? So people are making those decisions here. So it's 1 in 3 of all Canadian women under 25 experience period poverty, and they struggle to afford menstrual products here in Canada. That's a big number if you think about it. We've also seen COVID is exacerbating issues. So if I ask and you guys do a gut check, probably you've never considered donating menstrual products to places like a food bank, right? It's something we don't think about, but it's something that clientele needs. The Daily Bread Food Bank has reported that they've had a 200% increase in the amount of people that are trying to access their programs. So that's basically from before COVID, it was a 10,000 people they might see. And now they're seeing 25,000 people. So 100 to 300% increase in the amount since COVID itself. So we're seeing like, and that's just one food bank group. So one of the groups that we do that we've been partnering with prior to COVID, and they run drop-in programs for underprivileged youth, and they support their families with a snack program. They used to support 100 people a month, 100 families, and now they're doing 300 a week. So this has really, in when we think of food programs and whatnot and how many people need stuff, it's an increase. But then you think if 50% of our population are women, or might, they might not all identify as women, but and then you think a large portion of that might be menstruating. You can imagine that that's a huge percentage of people that are, do they have access to free products, or being able to access to purchase products? So this is really increased. So we're seeing food banks ask us for products all the time. So if this is what we're experiencing here in Canada, and I can speak to that, you can imagine how this is, in worldwide scales of countries that were already experiencing way worse of situations than we were here.
And I had heard that you were also supporting some of the recent Afghan refugees to Canada as well with period products.
That was one of it. Their timing was incredible. And yes, they reached out to us, and they were just like, do you have anything? Do you want to know anything? And within, from the first initial contact, it kind of came through a chain of people. Before it got to me, we had, in 24 hours, we sent them a ton of menstrual products. Another thing that's popular is underwear, clean new underwear. So we sent them a bunch of that as well. And we've been supporting that group as they've been bringing more people over, and they're kind of working through their 2-week quarantine and trying to set them up before they go out to the community groups.
And Donna had a question here with period equity, just to make sure we understand. Could you give us a very clear definition of what, I guess it's kind of aspirational in a way that we're trying to create this?
Yeah, so there's a lot, you'll hear a few definitions out there. So the period equity would be that everyone can access what they need when they need it, and not to just have that free, equitable access. So right now, that's not the case. Even if we look here, I'm working with a school group up in Northern Ontario, and they deal a lot with Indigenous communities. There's a huge Indigenous community there, and they're paying sometimes up to double and triple for just the same box that we can buy here in the city. So just removing that inequity. We have some countries that have tampon tax, so they're being taxed on the menstrual products. It's not deemed an essential item. I think for those who menstruate would beg to differ, right? We don't really have a choice with how our bodies do it. So that's sort of what that equity would be.
And Canada removed the tax on menstrual products several years ago, I believe, but as you say, other countries still charge it.
Yeah, we do. And there's a lot of interesting things that we, aha moments that we've had here at the Period Purse. So one of them was here in the city of Toronto. We discovered when we were starting out that the city shelters did not have a line item in their supplying city shelters for menstrual products. They had for soap and toilet paper and all of that, but there wasn't any funding going for menstrual products. So that was something we were able to work with and influence. And now there is some funding. It's not enough, but there is some of that funding there for it. So there's a lot of interesting things that are happening in the space that we can influence, like the tampon tax and free products.
Yeah, just curious if this group, I think it's Scotland, do they give menstrual products for free in schools? Is that what I'm remembering?
Do. It's all over the place. So there's actually some schools here are passed motions. So in Toronto, TDSB passed a motion to provide free menstrual products in their school. It's not in all the washrooms. It's within the school, so it's kind of I have a lot of big feelings about that. About, you know, if a student needs a pad or a tampon and it's not in the bathroom where they need to kind of come up with a temporary solution, go find that grown up, which can be super awkward, and, you know, locate the supply that they need, then go back to the washroom, use it, and then go back to class. So they're missing school just to access free product. It should be right in the bathrooms. Some cities have put in programs. So like the City of London has put in, there's some areas out in BC that's put in. Halifax has put in some programs, and the federal government currently has a program where they're trying to pass a motion to put free menstrual products in all federally regulated buildings. So that would be, you know, hopefully that goes through. It's been slow. We've been working with the government on that. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's moving slowly, like conversations happening and people are thinking about it.
Now, I noticed when I was doing my research on this that there are other voices in the world that have spoken out about this. One is Michelle Obama. Another is Meghan Markle. The UN has published papers on period equity and how important it is for human rights globally and those kinds of things. What are the groups that Plan International, I think, is another group that's involved in this? And what do you hope will be able to happen through all of these women and these voices, you know, coming together to talk about this?
You know, our blue sky goal is that people are able to have these open conversations. It's not taboo, not something spoken, you know, in back corners, and you only talk with your dear friends, and that everyone has access to the product that they need when they need it, where they need it, right? So it's like toilet paper, basically. It's in the washroom. It's where you need it. You go to somebody's house, it's out, you know where you can grab it, and you're not missing school or work or, you know, making difficult decisions, that it's all available. And that's going to, you know, even if you go back to what we were talking about with using socks and newspapers, you know, dignity is intact and there's no infections, and it's menstrual health with that.
That's great. Does anyone have questions?
I see a question in the chat. What do women around the world use instead? So there's lots of menstrual products out there. You know, we traditionally know about the pad and the tampon. And this is where we love to do education. There are so many fabulous products out there. Cloth pads is a big one now. So you would use them, and it's always been there, but it's something more like readily available and more openly discussed about how to use those. And they even have teen sizes with cool patterns. Menstrual discs and cups. So those would be inserted similar to a tampon, and you can wear those for up to 12 hours. They're silicone, so you can just take it out, dump it, wash it, reuse it. Very good for those who are traveling, and if that's their choice. It's not great, it's not perfect for everyone, but that's an option. They have reusable underwear now, like menstrual underwear and shorts that you can wear, pajamas. They even have swimsuits that have built-in liners to catch menstrual flow. So, you know, it's really kind of been interesting over the last few years. A lot of this was kind of in, you know, health food stores, or people didn't talk about it, and it was just like, you know, when I'm speaking mainstream, and now it's like mainstream, like it's right out there. There's big contacts. You know, if you're on social media, you'll probably, like, it's in the feeds and stuff like that. So it's much more talked about as we're doing conversations about it. I know even with my friends, they were, you know, when they're thinking about trying period underwear and menstrual cups, and now, and we talk about it openly, and they're asked questions and attend training seminars on it. So there's lots of different things there with it. I can show you what they all look like if anyone's interested. I always have lots of samples. I see a question from Donna.
Yes, thanks, Danielle. I just wanted to show you this. This is from Veradera, Cuba. And funny that I brought it home, but it was a story around this. Is my girlfriend, well, I had my period while I was down there and I'd forgot some products. My girlfriend who I was traveling with, she was off her period, so she didn't have any. So we hopped on a motor scooter and we went to 4 different places before we were able to find this. And I have to tell you, it's like cardboard. Like it is so, it hurt. Okay, just put it this, it's like getting paper cuts. So I can't even imagine what some other countries, provide. This was, again, very hard to find and cost a lot of money.
Yeah, and that cost bit is good. And just, you there's different standards sometimes with using, and in North America here we're getting used to the pads excuse me, keep getting thinner and thinner and thinner, and sometimes they're not as absorbent, not as comfortable to wear, and much thicker. So yeah, there's lots of difference of what products are available in different areas. I see one question in the chat, which I'll go to, and then I see a hand up. How are reusable cotton pads any different from clean socks? Great question. The reusable, and unfortunately I don't have one on me. I normally do, but I gave it to someone else to use for a presentation. So if you think of like a regular pad and it has snaps going around the bottom to hold the pad into place, it's also made often with fabrics that will be antibacterial and absorbent at the same time. A sock, although the cotton is there, it's not necessarily going to absorb. It could bleed all the way through your underwear and your whatever you're wearing. And also it comes back to dignity. I would definitely think that if anyone was to use a sock in place of a pad or another menstrual product out of need and necessity versus choice. I'm not going to judge if someone wants to use a sock, but that dignity is not going to be there. I hope that answers that. Christine.
I just wanted to say, Danielle, like I worked for social services, Toronto and Vancouver downtown east side. And despite budget cuts or any of that, the workers we always had supplies on us, and we always have them in the office, whether they were coming to pick up a check or they were in a group home. And Vancouver in particularly, because I worked in the downtown east side, when we went through severe budget cuts, we were told no longer to have Kleenex. If a client was crying, we could hand them a roll of toilet paper, and we all, said, Jesus, you're cutting that. And as a group, and mostly women, I mean, we took it upon ourselves to make sure there were, supplies in the office and people could come. But I mean, you can get anything in the downtown east side, so it was not as severe, but just, know that the workers are out there that we know. And, we're helping as much as we can, even if there is, 101 budget cuts going on.
Yeah, thank you so much for your service. Yeah, workers are like teachers, where they can make magic happen where there's no funding and whatnot. So we've experienced some shelters might have some, and that we're hearing reports, and this might not be applicable everywhere, but they might have be handing them like 1 or 2 pads in sort of situations, and or sometimes they might, if they have access to some more, they might do more. So what I'll show you what we use. So we, depending on what the place we support want, some places want sealed packages, and like you would purchase in a store and hand out that way to the people, or as a package to the people. A lot of food banks are set up in a store format now. But again, it depends on what the COVID situation is and what the area is we're supporting. So we change what we do, but a lot of places like what we call like a monthly pack, and it's probably a little bit more than a month's worth if you were to be careful with it. But we try to ensure that people can change it regularly if they have a heavier flow or a longer flow, and they can last for a full cycle, plus have a couple extra for this to start off the next month. So we do these kits that we provide. And inside has pads, tampons, liners, and a little postcard note that we include. And so a lot of facilities are just, we give them these and they can hand those out to the individuals. So, but Vancouver and out west, they seem to be ahead of what are many parts in Toronto and other parts of the country are. So
it's a higher dense population. Like, I mean, yeah, it's more in your face that you know, I think you have to deal with it when you're out west, as opposed to Toronto, where you could kind of not, you can bypass it in some ways.
absolutely. What other questions do you guys have for me? This is a great discussion. I love it.
Also curious who's experienced this when they're traveling. And, you know, often I can remember being in Kenya and it's culturally the girls not going to school at a certain age, but I didn't really, it didn't jig on me that this was one of the reasons behind it. Yeah, Amanda?
So my mother-in-law left us money in her will to build a school in a developing country, and we chose Ethiopia. And when we told the organization we were working with that our goal with this school was to build education equity for girls specifically, which was my mother-in-law's goal. She was a teacher, and that was something that was important to her. They said, okay, well, this school is going to need latrines. And it made sense on one level, but it wasn't until we got there and spoke to the girls who were at school that we realized that the reason they need a latrine is because of their periods, and girls with periods stop going to school at as early as grade 4 and just never make it past that, because if there isn't a latrine, they're not going. So yeah, that really opened our eyes to that issue.
Thank you, Amanda. Christine?
Gonna say, I remember being, when I first started coming down towards Mexico, so 30 some odd years ago, that, I mean, you could not find a tampon in any store, you know. I mean, you could find giant, enormous, you know, maxi pads, you know, very rarely, but you could not find any other nice, discreet product or anything, because it was, you know, again, I think it was, you know, taking the virginity of a woman if you used a tampon. So therefore, you know, you couldn't, and it's only been, I haven't looked in a long time, but I can only say maybe the last, you know, 10 years where you started to see, you know, tampons pop up.
Yeah, that's very much, there's a lot of ingrained like cultural reasons of why that product might not be appropriate. And we experience that with the same as cups. A lot of people are like, can't you just give everyone a cup? And, you know, then they have something forever because you can use them for like 10 years, you know? So, but it might not be appropriate, especially if those that have been experiencing sexual trauma, they also might not want to choose it, or just fit in preference, right? So, but yeah, it's definitely, sometimes they're tricky to find, right? We have another question here from Sandra.
Yes. Why not use the reusable antibacterial cotton pads, and then they have it forever? And how long does antibacterial last after washings? Wouldn't that be an easier, simpler, smaller, lighter, reusable way to do it?
I love what you're thinking. So these are the common questions that we get. And we have, for starters, we have developed a huge reusable program. So we work with the partners like Diva Cup, who are really kind of mainstreamed the menstrual cup. You can get it in Walmart or Shoppers or anywhere. And the reusable cloth pads as well. So it's not the silver bullet answer. So here's the solution. Here's the challenge with it. You need to have education for how to use a cup. So there is sort of a correct way to position it, have it to work, how to insert it, how to remove it, clean it, store it, that sort of situation. Same with cloth pads. The other real big challenge is you need access to clean water. So you need to be able to, for your cup, you know, if you're out and about, you can, you know, in a public washroom, you can dump it and just kind of give it a little wipe with toilet paper, but eventually you need to wash it, right? And have a mild soap and to clean it in order to keep it sanitary, right? So you need access to water for that. And then for the cloth pads, you also need access to laundry service, or, you know, a sink and soap and all of that. And not all of the clients that we support have that, and not everywhere in the world has it, including here in Canada, right? There's many Indigenous communities who still don't have access to clean, you know, readily available water. So that's expedited as well in travels across the world, right? If they don't have access to regularly launder the items appropriately, then it can actually cause more problems than if they were to use disposable. It's a great question. We get it all the time. It's one of the most common questions. It means that your brain's thinking about solutions. I love it.
Danielle, do you have an example of a menstrual cup with you?
Absolutely. I have multiple menstrual cups.
Actually, I've never seen one. I don't know about the rest of you, but
Right.
I've never seen one.
So give me a moment here. So I'll show you the Diva cups. They come in multiple sizes, even based on age and if you've had a child. So this is sort of what the cup looks like. So what you would do is you fold it, and there's different ways to fold it. And this is all silicone, like medical grade. And there's different ways to fold it. And the most common way is just kind of a C fold. And what you would do is, if you think this is your vagina, you would insert it sort of similar to a tampon, and your cervix would be above here, and it would just go inside your body. And you can wear that for up to 12 hours. If your flow is really heavy, like mine, you might need to remove it on your heavy days before 12 hours. And to remove it, you just sort of pop it open to break the seal, and you gently pull out, and then you just dump it, and you're good to go. So, and then you can rinse it. If you're in a private washroom, you probably would rinse it out with a little bit of mild soap, and you can reinsert it, or you can just dump it, give it a quick little wipe, and then reinsert it. And it catches the blood opposed to absorb the blood. A lot of these companies come with like a little carry bag, and you would, when you're done your cycle, you give it one little clean, put in your carry bag, and pop it in your purse or suitcase or backpack, whatever it is, drawer, until you need it again. So there's lots of different kinds. There's even the different shapes. You can see this is like a slightly different shape. And there it's like, so this is one company, Diva. And so they have a size 2, which would be if you had a child or you're over the age of 30, I think it is. Size 1, or that's recommended. Everybody's different. And then there's like a youth size 0 size. So it's quite interesting. They do fold down quite, like, if you have, one second, I have a tampon here I use, because some people think that this is really big. So this is like a tampon size, and you can fold this in different ways. And there's a fold, and you can see that they're about the same size. I don't know if you can see that. It's for insertion. So it's a great opportunity. So yeah, that's menstrual cups for you.
You just told me more than my own mother ever told me. So
no, again, if you asked me if this would be ever happening, I would say absolutely not. You're bonkers. But this is what we need to do. What's really crazy is I'm raising 2 boys who know about all of this now. So and there's lots of kids. Actually, even our founder has 2 boys, and went to school and told their teachers about stuff. So it's important to start the conversation and just kind of be open. Start with a few small friends that you're close to, and it just kind of spreads a little bit more. And this is how we're going to impact change, and here in North America, as well as in your travels, right? Just kind of being more open about this.
Yeah, and I think even thinking of, I donate food as well, but even thinking about menstrual products and donating those, for me, that's like now that's a no-brainer. And honestly, I never would have thought of that before this conversation, even though I use them. And why wouldn't that be considered an essential item? And to be honest, I'm not sure I see the call for that kind of thing enough when food banks are raising money and they're looking for food, which is obviously the priority. But yeah, I hope your efforts pay off there.
Yeah, as COVID has changed, the food banks are seeing their clients ask more. Again, it becomes comfort factor, right? As we become more comfort or more confident to have these types of conversations, that impacts the users of those facilities and the clients, and they are more comfortable asking, right, for the products, because sometimes they are just, it's something that's kind of shunned and you don't discuss, right? So it's not just because it's not asked for doesn't mean it's not needed, right? So we're seeing food banks now, because their clients are asking more for it, they're reaching out to us and asking more. And you know, we only served a couple food banks years ago, and now I'm getting food bank calls all the time, and sending products out to food banks all the time. So the need is there.
Yeah, and it's a great point too, even if some of us are going through menopause, which is a whole other discussion of joy and excitement. And but still, this is all about being healthy and having a healthy reproductive system and healthy bodies. And but the point of bringing products with us when we travel, I think that's a really great idea that we can do. It's very simple and doesn't take up too much room.
Yeah, and you can, you know, pop a few in a bathroom or something. You know, there's lots of different ideas, and you seem like a smart group there, can kind of brainstorm some stuff of what can be done. But you know, just recognizing, I would say, would be the biggest thing. You know, noticing that, you know, the tampons in Mexico are so different and different quality than here, and or, you know, they don't have access to it, and just kind of being aware of it. We kind of use the phrase of, you know, you don't know until you know sort of situation. And that's something big for us that we do. And that's why we really work on advocacy and having these discussions and educating, you know, youth and stuff to go out there and empower them and teach them the stuff that I wish I was taught, right? And, you know, that goes to those, you know, approaching menopause or experiencing menopause. You know, that's something that's not really talked about so much as well, right? It's kind of a, oh yeah, that's what, you know, the situation is, and just kind of impacting it and learning it. And I know I'm always trying to get questions and answers about that as well, and so that I can learn, because one day I'll be there as well. So and that kind of encompasses all into that, you know, menstrual health that we were talking about, that we really need to influence and be open about. And that's, you know, although we get free products out to those who need them, this is where that our education and advocacy pillar come into big, because this is something we need to talk about more as well.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see, even in our editorial, you know, our articles not only talk about the experience that we're having when we travel, but what is the experience of the women on the ground in this area, and make sure that we bring that up in our content, so we can bring more awareness to this. So
absolutely, I love that.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments or experiences that any of you want to share?
There's a question from Jane in the chat.
Yeah.
If we better share our travels, what is better, 1 or 2 complete packages or small repack template? It's I don't know. Like, it's kind of is it better to support, you know, one particular thing or sprinkle amounts? I think that's like sort of a personal decision to make. You know, this is why even for us, we, you know, some places hand out a whole pack like this, and some just hand out, you know, 5 or 6, and so they can support more people. So yeah, I've seen some groups also repack in like small Ziplocs. Like, this is a freezer size bag of Ziplocs, but just like a small little Ziploc. That could be an option as well to hand out.
Yeah, because we have talked before about things we bring to other countries when we travel, like gum or crayons or something, but this has not come up, has it? So now we know, we have a new idea of things we can hand out when we visit other countries. Marilee.
I was going to say that it has come up in my travels a few times, certainly in Kenya, where the issue is not just the products, but having a private bathroom or private space to go to use. And then on semester at sea, being educational and traveling the world and going to places like Morocco and Cambodia and Vietnam, we have had discussions, the girls have, and they've taken on the cause as well. So, but there needs to be a lot more discussion of this. It really is, it's a global problem.
Absolutely.
And thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
So thanks, ladies, for joining today. Thanks for talking about this, because I think that's the first step. And Danielle, thank you for coming, and please thank Jana too for doing this effort with us and helping to raise awareness and all the good work that you're doing.
Thank you so much for inviting us and including us in this conversation. So
yeah, my pleasure. You can thank my daughter.
Thank her for me too then.
This is how I learn, right? I'm just like taking it all in. Anyways, ladies, have a lovely weekend, and we'll see you next week. I will be not here next week. I will be somewhere in Spain, but I'll be posting about it. So thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.